Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Rowena Robinson and I am a Boss Babe Queen. And if you're not new here, thank you for returning, Boss Babe. I hope this episode brings you more clarity or gives you a bit more information. As you saw by the title, this is another Boss Babe series. This episode will be touching on assessment days and how to navigate through those. All right, so without further ado, let's just jump into it. A few weeks ago, probably three now, a few weeks ago, I was given the opportunity to sit through an assessment day as an assessor. So obviously, we had students or persons who wanted to get into this graduate role. They are in their final year of uni or they had recently graduated from university and they had gone through the steps of getting a graduate job, and then had made it to the final step, which would have been the assessment center. I have done videos on this already in the past, like steps of getting a graduate job, the whole interview process, doing your online assessments if they require it, and then your assessment center. The only difference was that when I spoke then in my previous episodes, I was speaking from a point of view of a student. So I would have been going through the process. So I spoke on my process as a student or as an applicant or as an interviewee, right? So this time, on the other hand, I was now on the opposite team. So I was the assessor. I was the interviewer. I was actually interviewing people to come into this position, right? I had already gone through the steps, as I said, as a student. So that's how I am in this current graduate position. So like seeing it from a different angle provided more clarity, and I thought I'd just come back because on the day there were a lot of things that I noticed, and obviously as an assessor I cannot tell these students or these candidates that don't do this or don't do that. But after that I had felt so strongly about coming here and actually speaking on certain things when it comes to assessments and setting yourself the right way, because sometimes I do believe we're our own biggest enemy. Like we don't even realize how we mess our own self up sometimes. And throughout that assessment day, I was just baffled that some of the things that candidates were saying or some of the actions or stuff like that. And I thought, you know what, let me now come again and do a video about assessment days, but from the point of view of an interviewer, so that I can actually say, guys, this is what they're looking for, and I can walk you through what is being looked for or what is being assessed and stuff like that, so that you get a bit more clarity, because I definitely got clarity. Some of these things weren't new to me, but I just wonder if university or life or whatever teachers we have out there are preparing candidates enough for assessment days, because I am not convinced after seeing the performance of the assessment day that I was on as an interviewer. So let's jump into it. Firstly, as I've mentioned previously, there are steps to getting a career, any career. I would imagine that any job there are stages to get. You don't just get the job, right? So from the first instance you send in a CV. Now with a normal or something that's not a graduate position, then after you send your CV it may be reviewed and then you may be called for an interview and then boom, you get the job and stuff. But for graduate positions, generally it is a lot more complicated, because you would have had a lot more students applying to the one job. I am in a current graduate position, but before I got into this graduate position, I also was in another graduate position. It just wasn't fulfilling, so I left that one and came here. So I do have experience both as an applicant for graduate positions, because I got 2 graduate positions, and also now as an assessor. So I can speak from both angles, if you get what I mean. Right, so when you send through your application, understand that there are pools of other people who are applying for the same position. Graduate jobs are usually highly competitive, right? Because a lot of students are graduating and they don't have enough jobs to give every single student from university. So during my time when I applied for this current graduate position, it was 138 applicants, right? And then I got the position. And in the one prior to this, so as I told you, I left another graduate position I was in. So in that one prior to this, there were over 1,000 applicants. Just to give you the scale of how it can range in terms of applicants and what you're competing against. So you obviously want to make sure that your CVs are up. I've already done a Boss Babe episode on this for in season 1. This is now season 2. I'm coming back just because, as I said, I've been an interviewer on this, so I can tell you from interviewer side. But you just want to make sure your CVs are up, right? And even when it's say up to par as well, sometimes your CV may be up to par, but it's just that the AI that's marking it didn't pick it, and that's the truth. Not like, for example, as I said, one of the graduate jobs that I'd be given a position in, over 1,000 applicants. As you can imagine, one person will not sit there and go through 1,000 applications or CVs. So what will happen is that it will be marked, and if you're in university, you will hear, well, you should hopefully hear this, that the first step or the first stage of your application usually is artificial intelligence. It's a computer-aided thing that selects keywords and matches you up against the criteria for the job, and if your CV seems up to par, then it will select it, and then those candidates move on. And in some positions, if there's less applicants, maybe there are 10 applicants, then maybe, you know, you have human intervention where the HR or hiring personnel look into your CV. But for graduate positions, most often than not, it is some form of AI, computer intelligence, that picks the first initial candidates who get to the next stage, all right? After getting to the next stage, then it is now either interview, online based, or whether they actually come in. Because what they're doing is, since the computer has sieved through the different CVs and selected the matching candidates, potential candidates, then, you know, that gets sent to HR, and then they will obviously have a look through and stuff like that. So after, when you call in for the interview, again, they will then again select and deselect who they want to continue on to the next level. This is a graduate position, right? The final level of graduate positions usually are assessment centers. For every company is different. The number of interviews, I know for some companies they do require you to do like some online assessment, like psychometric tests and all sort of stuff online before you even get to the following stage. But for some companies, you know, that's not the case. Now for the company I'm in, that was not the case. You never had to do any psychometric test online. You just send to your CV. If it's processed to the next level, then interview or assessment center. Now, assessment center, let's get to it. Number 1, I would say, thankfully my year when I was in the assessment center, it was online, but still this still follows. Number 1 is, do not be late for an assessment center unless it is absolutely outside of your control, then fair enough. But number 1, don't be late. If they say 9 o'clock, ensure that you prepare to be there for 9 o'clock. And when I say prepare, map out your route from your house to, or wherever you're leaving from, to your destination, and get there on time. Because what will happen is, for an assessment center, all the assessors and all the candidates and the facilitator, that's the HR representative that will be there on the day facilitating the entire thing, will be in a room, because it starts off giving, obviously, you know, an overview of the day and the agenda for the day. If you are late, you are walking in to everyone who's already there before you. Then everyone will know that you've been late. That's a negative sign already. All right? So make sure you map the route out to be there on time. 2, don't ever let anyone tell you that it doesn't matter how you dress. Let me tell you this. First impressions last always. First impressions last. And yes, while some people may be like, oh, nobody should judge, don't judge a book by its cover, the fact is, majority of times, humans judge each other by the cover. That's just the facts. And we're not here to debate what should be or what shouldn't be. The fact is, it is what it is. People see you, and just by seeing you, there's an impression made in the first 7 seconds. That's actually a study done on that. I can see someone, and the first 7 seconds, I make up an assumption of that person just by what I see. It's not good. And we're not debating that, but that's what happens. So imagine this. Imagine you going to a company that wants to hire someone. Imagine you turning up in a sweats and hoodie and you know, joggers and what, like trainers and stuff. And then someone coming nicely dressed in a suit. The fact of the matter is, the person who comes dressed in a suit is going to be perceived a bit higher than you, regardless of what that person's intellect is like, regardless of anything, because the fact is, you're already judged based off how you look. So make sure that when you go there, you bear that in mind. When you prepare, you bear that in mind. Don't come crushed. Don't come in a hoodie. Don't come like dress smartly, especially if the company that you're applying for is one of those traditional companies. Now there are some companies, as always, there's always some exceptions to the rule. There's some companies that they dress casually, so they don't expect that level of office attire as some companies. But again, that's just based off your research and based off the company that you do, all right, or you are applying for. So that's 2. Dress appropriately, right? Number 3, if they have given you some assessments to do prior to your assessment day, ensure that you do them and you do them well. Now, when I say well, I mean that encompasses ensuring that the assessment you do. So, for example, you get a topic. Majority of the times, assessment day comprises of candidates doing a presentation. If you're asked to do a presentation on any topic to obviously it's going to be to the assessors, ensure that as much as you possibly can, that whatever you're presenting on has something related to the job that you're going to apply for, because it just makes more logical sense, right? So that when the assessors are looking at you and for your presentation, like they can relate to what you're saying and they're seeing it make sense. Do you know what I mean? Like if I'm applying for a logistics graduate position, for example, and I were asked to present something, I maybe present on a trucking thing that I did, or something that had some logistics thing for me to sort out previously, whether that's in university or whether that's in a previous employment. I would present on something that could fit back into logistics, something that showed that there's logics in it, something that shows that there is a path to do it, and I did it this way. I wouldn't necessarily present on medical information. Like, yes, it's still a presentation on anything, because you can say, they didn't tell me or they didn't specify. But because of the position I'm going into, it gotta make sense. So it would make more sense for me to present on something that has to do with routine, or something that has to do with read the criteria of the job that you're applying for, or something that has to do with that, rather than present on something that has nothing that could even be transferable into that position. No skill, nothing at all. All right? So again, that's one, prepare. The 4th one is do your research on the company. You're not going to know everything, but at basic level, you should know some things. Especially if you're going to go into an assessment center. I can understand, because we all do this. When I graduated 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago now, yeah, I needed to find a graduate position. So I was just sending out BA applications. I sent out applications like crazy. I mean, go on LinkedIn. I used to even filter the thing where it was just easy apply, so I never had to do no extra nothing. I just sent through my CV, and the companies reached back to me. We'd be sending out those. I appreciate that at that time you're just pushing out everything. But if it gets to the stage where you're selected to go to this company for an assessment day, and you're actually going online or on site for the assessment day, that means, oh my gosh, you have to know something about this company. Does this company sponsor international students? And I feel very strongly when it comes to international students, because that's what I was, right? International students. Majority of the times you're going to look for companies that sponsor. Thankfully, the UK has changed the laws in 2020 that, once you graduate after 2020, then you get a 2-year additional graduate visa, right? So a graduate visa allows you to be extended length of stay in the UK for 2 years. Majority of your graduate positions are 2 years. You find some that are 3 years, but majority of them are 2 years. So that means your graduate visa covers you 2 years stay in the UK. Now, I'm going to say this, and I need you guys to take notes. My international babes, boss babes internationally, here's the thing. Or my foreign students, yeah? If you plan to stay in the UK, there are some companies that will sponsor you, and there are some companies that will not sponsor you. It is very hard to find companies that will actually sponsor, because it is getting harder and harder. Do you know that they actually have to pay to sponsor people, and they have to go through a lot of paperwork to sponsor students? So the thing is, they're going to try as much as possible to not have persons to sponsor. They're going to try to find persons within UK who already have citizenship and documents and everything sorted, because that's less headache for the company, and that's just facts. And if you think about it logically as well, if you were in their position as a company, you would want to do the same thing, because then that's just less stress on you. If you get someone who already has all the documents and clearances and everything, you don't have to worry about nothing. You're not, working illegally or hiring someone illegally. Now, it becomes a bit more complicated when you have to hire someone who doesn't have their relevant stay. Companies actually have to pay to sponsor people, right? They pay to own a sponsorship title, all right? And that list is not updated on Gov Network. When I was doing it, at least, I don't know if it is now, but when I was looking for companies that sponsor, they had companies listed there that when you check them out, the companies were no longer sponsoring. All right, because it was becoming more difficult to prove that they could not find anyone within the country itself, so they had to hire like someone who's international. All right, so do your research. If the company is not sponsoring and do not offer sponsor, please don't go there and think that you're in a position as yet to tell them that they need to sponsor you. The fact is you're not. You're not even a candidate. You haven't even been given a position yet. What I found on a day as an assessor, sat there in the same position that I was a year ago, with these kids are now in, like people were in there and literally questioning, like saying, oh, so are they going to sponsor me? Are they going to do this? And I'm like, guys, it's literally stated the company's not going to sponsor nobody. But you pushing it is not making your stuff even better for you. Because here's the thing, it was a 2-year graduate scheme. You'll get a 2-year graduate visa. The fact of the matter is, you could have been there for 2 years and no one knew that you were international because you already have your stay. Within 2 years, a lot can happen. You don't know what might change. So by you outing yourself up from early, the fact is you could have gone into that position and sat there for 2 years and something in your personal life worked out, and that changed with a company. You no longer need a company to sponsor you. You know what I mean? Or maybe you could have been in that company and somewhere in those 2 years, the company suddenly decides, okay, I'm going to sponsor because I see where it's relevant. You know what I mean? If you're in the company, you have a stronger possibility to change the direction of the company rather than if you're not even there yet. On the assessment center, I saw a number of persons who, everyone had equal rights, as in, like everyone, no one was chosen yet. So they had equal possibility of becoming the person who is going to be in that position. But people reduced their likelihood of getting the position because they were pushing something that the company itself was never ever pushing. And the company itself had even stated that they do not do. One person came in there and they're just saying, okay, I just want to know from now, will this company sponsor me? And first of all, I'm sat there thinking, man, firstly, why are you coming on such a high about it? Like, you're not in a position to do that yet. Just come in there and be humble with it and just relax, innit? And then 2, since they were pushing that now, it was now picked up. So the question was thrown out. Okay, so if you do not get a sponsorship, what happens next? Because my company that I was doing assessment for, they're actually looking for career searchers, not just for a job. And the difference is career-driven people are looking for a company to stay. It takes resources, money, time, human resource to actually do a whole assessment center, to go through the recruitment process and to hire someone. It takes a lot of time and effort. So what they don't want is they don't want someone to be hopping on and then next month they're gone. They're looking for someone who wants to come on and stay on for the long term, who wants to actually build a career. A career is different from a job. A career, you're in for a lifetime. A job, you're just here now and you're probably gone a year, months, whatever. So they're looking for career-driven people. That's the position that the company holds, right? So that's why they take such great length to go through these different things and assess people to see whether they will be a fit. The question was asked to this candidate, okay, since you were, asking a lot about this sponsorship thing, if you don't get sponsored, if, for example, we give you the position and in 2 years you didn't get sponsored, what would happen? And the candidate answered, and they said, well, I would have to just leave and I'll have to either find a company that's going to sponsor me or I'll have to go home. And I thought to myself, like, I cringed inwardly because I thought, you just set yourself up to not get this position now. Because it wasn't even like they tried to think of something that could happen. 2 years is a long time, you don't know what could happen. Remember, in 2019, I thought I was going to have to go back home because remember, you only had either find a company to sponsor you or you get back home because your visa ended, your student visa. In that same year, it was passed, a new law passed to say that actually, as of next year, March 2020, when students graduate from university, instead of having to go back home, they will be able to get a 2-year extension. I mean, that passed in 2019. And when I say things can change, you never know what can change. Things in your personal life can change, laws can change, all different type of things can change. So if you take that approach like, oh yeah, if you don't sponsor me, it is just this, I'm gone. Without even thinking, we are saying or suggesting that you're going to try to find some other method of doing something. Like, obviously they're not going to want to sponsor you because you just put that burden on them. So now they're going to be like, why would I go here when I can get this person else who already has everything? That's just the facts. So when he said that, I'm just like, man, I wish I could just talk to him, but obviously I'm not in a position to do that because I am actually assessing this candidate. So please do your research on the company that you're applying for. If you're applying for a particular reason, ensure that the company is able to fulfill all the demands that you have, and you're able to fulfill all the demands that they have as well. When you're answering questions, remember, assessment day, you have, all right, how ours was set up is that we had given candidates 3 tasks, all right? So it was going to be a group exercise to kick it off. Then we had the interviews, then we had a presentation. That was the agenda for the day. So obviously we started off with the opening, the welcome, just to introduce ourselves, all the assessors who were there, tell what positions we're in, what we do, how long we've been at the company, and what we're looking forward to today. And then obviously the candidates also introduce themselves and stuff. Let me tell you what happens in the group exercise, because even that, I think people might misunderstand the purpose of that. The real fact is the group exercise is not to get the correct answer. They're not judging you based on if your answer is correct. Prior to the assessment day, we have a list of candidates, and as assessors, we are given the candidates who will be doing different tasks with. So I knew who I was going to observe, right? I knew who I was going to interview, and I knew who the presentations I'd order and stuff like that. So the person I was going to interview, I had gotten their CV already and everything. So, and I had like the interview questions that were marked out and stuff like that. The person I was going to assess, again, the CV, I had their CV, I had everything. For the group exercise, it is never about the correct answer. It is just literally to see how you work in a group. That is literally it. Now, people go there thinking it's the correct thing and they're trying to do this. And then they also go there with the idea that, they need to push out and show that they're the leader in this and the leader in that. And they have to overpower everybody else. Because, let me tell you something. Please get rid of that notion. Don't ever think that when you have a group exercise, you being on top, you being the leader, you being is always the right thing. As a company, they're trying to find people who are teachable, but people who are also able to take initiative. Do not get me wrong. Having natural leadership traits is not a bad thing. But when it is excessive, it is horrible. No one would want to take you on, because you have to think, you are coming into this company as a starter, as a beginner. You're coming in at graduate entry level. That means they want you to be teachable, but they also want to know that you'll be taking initiative, which is why I say, taking a natural leadership position is not bad. However, you need to balance it. So you can lead a group and not be the most talkative one. Did you know that? You can also lead a group and not even be the one with the loudest voice, you can lead smartly. So you can direct conversations. That means you are taking into account people who are not as, as brave or as forward as some of the group, because you'll find that there's a mixture of personalities. There are some people who might be, just ready to speak. Well, some might be a bit more reserved and more on the introverted scale. You need to allow those people to speak as well, and you need to bring those people up and encourage them. They want to see that you are good in terms of teamwork. It is never just about you. This is teamwork. That's why it's a group work. So they're trying to see how you would work well in a group. And if you're not able to work well in a group, more than likely the chances are you might come into this company and not get on with your teammates. They don't want that, because that's just wahala, and they don't want that. So think, when you're doing a group work, allow others to speak. Be kind. Do not laugh after someone who might not be explaining themselves as clearly as you would have. Do not be unkind. Like just think about these things. Because even on the day, like the person who got the highest mark in the group work was someone who wasn't even loud. Like I was observing someone from a different group, and the loudest guy was in the other group, and I could hardly even focus on the person I was observing because that guy was so loud and he just wanted to speak, and you just instantly it was just a throw off, because like, why are you doing all that? It's unnecessary. You don't have to be that loud. And there was just an air of arrogance about him. Do not get me wrong. Confidence is different from arrogance. Have confidence. Right? Confidence is knowing that you got this. You will be good. And if you don't know fully everything right now, you're going to know it. No one's better than you, but you're also better than no one. Arrogance is where you believe that you're better than everyone and no one can talk to you about that. Arrogance is what's bad. That guy was arrogant. I mean, and then he was just boisterous. He was just loud, and it was just throwing everyone off, because even the other officers were saying, like, he needs to tone down and calm down so that we can, just assess. But when it comes to group work, all you're doing is being observed. We don't care. We had the correct answer in front of us, so we know what the correct answer would be. But we just need to see how you interact with a group or in a group setting. And when it comes to decision making, how are you able to direct time or direct conversation and stuff like that. So that's all we want to see. Next was the interview. In the interview, If you guys don't know this, whenever you get asked a question and you answered, and then you were asked another question on top of, just for clarity, that means you have left out some details and your answer was not very clear. And I think that should have been obvious, but the fact is it wasn't obvious on the day to some of the candidates, because we sat there and we were interviewing some candidates and they never answered, so we had to be pulling the answers out of them by asking follow-up questions. And they weren't realizing that it's just because they didn't answer the first question correctly. When you're answering a question, always try to answer it in a format. We call it STAR format. You might call it something else. STAR: situation, task, your actions, and then the results. STAR. Situation, that just giving us a background story. Paint a picture for us. Give us a background. Where was this? What job was this? So that we understand the concept of what you're about to do, right? So situation is painting the background, all right? I was in uni, or I was one of my previous experiences. As I said, we have your CV anyway, so we know your previous experiences. So say, oh, it was 2001, and we were in da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That situation, right? Then a task. Oh, we had 100 people complaining about this, and we realized that we have to do blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. That's your task. Your task is you have complaints from da-da-da-da, and now you have to do something about it. Action. Your action is telling me what you did. And let me tell you something. Unless the question states that tells us about the time when as a group you all did something, unless the question states that, everything should be about you, what you did, your actions, not as a group action, your own. Because the interviews where we're trying to get to know you as a candidate to see if you're a fit for the position you're applying for. Don't tell me about what your group mate did, what your uncle did, or what whoever did. We need to know about you. There are a number of mistakes or errors that happened during that assessment day, in terms of the interview aspect. First one being, pupils or candidates weren't answering in a logical manner. They just tell us, oh, action, result. But we have no idea of what the situation or the task was to begin with. So we can't really appreciate what you did. Always answer in a manner that you would tell a story in. If you're telling a story, you're not going to leave out. You're not going to get to just the results. No. Because the background is what really matters to really appreciate the result. So always tell it in a way, you can either follow the direction I gave you with the star analogy just now, or you can, whatever analogy you use, but just make sure it has the background, the situation, the task, make sure it has the action that you're going to do, and the results, regardless of whatever else you want to call it. Make sure it has all that so it paints the entire picture. All right? Do not just give us a result and no background, or give us a background and no result. We still want to know the outcome and, the play up to it. That's one. Number two, people were speaking about them, the teammates, or speaking on a group term, rather than actually speaking about their own selves. And there was one candidate, and they were, whenever they got asked a question, they were just talking as, oh, I had to do this to the team. I had to do this to the team. Again, don't ever take that stance where you want to paint yourself as the savior of everything. Don't get me wrong. There's some instances when you gotta big yourself up a little bit, yes, but not in everything, because then if you do every single question, it becomes a case of, okay, hold up. So what do you actually do? Do you naturally take, just the leadership position in every single thing, or do you actually do work? You know what I'm saying? And if you do work, then you should be able to correctly or say freely what you've done. But if you haven't done anything, then that's where you're going to be like, oh, I encourage the team. If every question I'm asking you is like, oh, you have to tell the team to do this, what is it that you actually do? Because they want people who are going to grind and graft with their own thing as well. So what is it that you're doing? You know what I'm saying? So we had a candidate like that who every question that he was asked, it was a case where he was like, oh, I had to tell the team to do it. It was more of, do you actually do anything? And that was a consensus among the assessors that were there. It's like, you keep saying you do this to the team and you encourage them and the team does this, but what do you actually do? Okay, and then when he said, oh, I encourage her, I'm like, okay, cool. So how do you encourage them? Oh, I just tell them we gotta get this done. And I'm like, guys, just make it make sense. Make it make sense. Don't get me wrong. You see, if you have a natural disposition to lead, that is not bad. Because I feel like I generally have a natural tendency towards leadership than following. That's not bad. But leading does not mean you have to be a bully. Leading does not mean you have to have the final say. Leading does not mean that only your ideas get taken into consideration. You can lead but still be respectful. You can lead and still listen to others and value the others' opinions, because as a leader, you know that, okay, I might not have all the answers. So don't feel bad if you're a leader, but just make sure that you manage what you're saying and that you appreciate the value of others, because every company wants to see that. Also, another interesting thing that I never thought I would have to say, but again, I do feel like maybe universities are not preparing their students enough for interviews and stuff. And at some point, there's only so much university can do to prepare you as well. Like, there needs to be an element of common sense. When you're answering these questions, do not ever reveal anything that could incriminate you. Shocking that I had to mention that, right? But we had an instance where a candidate revealed some information that even today, I'm still sat there like, did he really say that? Like, you could have answered that question in so many different ways. Why did you choose to mention that you did that? Guys, understand this. As much as company wants you to be honest, and you know, when they say, okay, tell me about the time when you had a fault or you weren't good at something and and you improved, it shouldn't be something that is very questionable, because at the end of the day, the company wants to employ someone who they can trust. And there's some things that are just generally, you shouldn't be doing that anyway. So if you needed all that to happen for you to realize that what you're doing was bad, that tells me that if there's no mitigation factors in my company that would stop you from doing this or something like this, that means you probably would do it and not realize that you're doing something wrong. So what you're doing there, as much as you're answering the question, you are putting yourself at a lesser advantage than another person, when you could have answered the question so much differently. There are many different things that we could all take to mention. One, a time when we failed at something, or a time when we weren't good at something, or a time when we did something bad to do it, then we learned to do it good. Like, there's so many instances. Don't ever reveal anything that could incriminate you or put you in a position where it's like, I would not like such and such person working here, or that person wouldn't fit on my team. And I would say, finally, right, in your presentation, because that's the final thing now. Remember, we spoke about a group assessment where you're just being observed. We spoke about the interviews, how you should answer questions, star analogy, or don't reveal nothing that's incriminating you, or don't go on a high horse where you answered everything like, oh, I did this for the team, or relax. But also remember that there is the final stage, which is the presentation. And as I said initially, one, choose a topic that makes sense for the position you're applying for, right? Because especially if you get no specific topic, then you have the liberty to choose any topic that you think might be relevant. Two, when you're presented, be confident in what you're presenting. Remember, you get time to prepare a presentation. In my day, when I was doing it a year ago, I never got time to prepare. It was on the actual assessment. I was online, thankfully, that we got 30 minutes to prepare a presentation and then do it. These lot that were coming here, the candidates on that day, they had actually gotten like 2 weeks to prepare, so they had time to prepare. And it shocked me at some of the presentation, because I'm like, you had time to prepare and you came with that? Come on, 2 whole weeks. Prepare something. And if you prepare something, at least know what you're presenting on, so that when you get asked questions, you're not stuttering all over the place. And don't get me wrong, nerves play a factor, but don't ever feel like if you get nervous, it's going to reduce your mark. Like, assessors are fair when it comes to that. The person who came out on top, they actually stuttered and still came out on top. This is what I mean. Like, it wasn't someone that you would think, oh, naturally they stood out so that they're gonna get it. They're the top candidate. You know what I mean? No, it wasn't like that. It was just that, she knew what she was on about. So when she got asked questions, she answered. She presented and it made sense logically. We all followed her presentation and none of us were lost. Like, what? You know what I'm saying? So make sure you know your topic. Make sure it's probably relevant more than likely to the position that you're applying for. If you get asked questions, answer them without hesitating, or if you don't fully understand the question, ask for clarity as well. Don't feel like if you are nervous that's a end all and be all. No, it's not. And then overall, one final advice I would give you is ensure that your demeanor on the day is your best demeanor ever. Ensure that you are, if you're shy, ensure that you come out your comfort zone and you talk to people. Because at the end of the day, remember that there are potentially people in that group or who are assessing you, observing you and stuff that you'll be working with. As much as there are, rankings on the day, so like based off each activity, you are marked. The ultimate decision depends on the manager of that day, right? Unfortunately for me, on the assessment day, that person was applying for a position that I was already in, and then they're coming to my team. So on that day, my manager and I had like the final say. Like we would have decided, okay, does this person fit into our group? Can this person da da da? And then my manager now would have the ultimate final say to be like, okay, cool, I'm gonna select this person for whatever reasons, yeah. So the way you communicate, the way you present yourself, or just carry yourself throughout the day can have an impact on your final decision. Because as much as the marks are there, if for whatever reason the deciding manager decides that, nah, even though this says this, I think this person is a better fit because they might have the relevant experience, but they're trainable, and whatever reason, they can still select you. Don't ever think, oh, it is a done. And the fact is, you don't even know the grades because candidates don't even know the ratings. They probably won't ever know the ratings as well. It is only assessors that know the ratings at the end of the day as well. So ensure that overall, like you are doing a good job of presenting your best self, because that can help a lot. I'll close this out here. I think I have given you enough to think about, and hopefully you should have already known most of these already, but I'm not convinced on the day that the candidates knew all what I'm saying right now. So if this can help one person, I'll be happy. Just please understand that an assessment day comprised of so many different things. And so when you carry yourself to the question you ask, there are a number of different factors that can make you higher or lower on the rating scale, alright? So consider each of these, and I hope this was helpful. Bye.